after this video, before this video, I did season 1 of Cobra Kai. Now let's pick it up with season 2 of Cobra Kai. But then we're going to do season 3 of Cobra Kai after I finish the season. And then we'll be all set for season 4 of Cobra Kai. If you want to see all the episodes that make up the season, obviously, watch it on Eagle Fan Kid. But if you have already, just watch the recap. So this season starts off where the last one left off, with John Kreese showing up at Johnny's dojo, saying he puts out his hand, but Johnny slaps it away, saying about how he almost choked him, and yeah, so how he almost choked him, and they get into a fight. He punches Kreese's cigar out of his mouth, almost bringing the whole place to the ground up, basically, and yeah, almost to the ground. So, to the ground, basically. And that's kind of what happens. So Sam basically blocks Miguel on Final Quest, and basically picks out Miguel as that Cobra Kai is making Miguel a bully. Yeah. And yeah. So Miguel's over there sad and looking. Yeah, and Hawk, Moon, Aisha, and Dimitri are sitting at one table, and Aisha's, live streaming and saying about how Hawk, did this stuff, how the waitress was not buying Hawk's fake ID, and Hawk's like, "What's up with you? My parents are followed by you." So she's like, "Sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Mascoy," and she's like, "No mercy." So Miguel sits alone, sad. Yeah. So yeah. So they're all saddened by Sam's, So Sam decides to join Robbie and Daniel as a student of Miyagi-Do karate. Yeah. So anyway, Giant Kreese is like, "Hey, let me join Cobra Kai again." And Johnny's like, "Hold up, I own Cobra Kai. It's mine, not yours. So leave. You ruined his life." But then Kreese comes back another time and fixes Johnny's trophy. And Johnny's like, "Hey, hold up." And Kreese does an evil smile because they're really trying to make Kreese the main antagonist of this entire show, the second season. So Yasmin is gone. So is Kyler. They say Yasmin was in Paris. And Kyler, he's probably in the school. They just don't show him. So in episode 2, John Kreese officially joins Cobra Kai as a co-sensei, and that's basically as a co-sensei, and Johnny's like, "Hey, stop making jokes," and he's like, "Hey, what does the snake do?" And he's like, "Hey, what is the snake doing?" And he's like, "What is the snake doing?" And she's like hisses, and Johnny's like, "Quiet," because he's like, "This is no time to joke around," and yeah, so he buys out a cement truck, and the cement truck is like, "Johnny, those are children," and he's like, he's like, "Get in the cement truck," and he's like, "Sensei, we're sorry," and Kreese's like, "Quiet," and he's like, "This man, just because you wouldn't have won the All Valley because of this man, the man that I taught." He's like, you were, and then he talks like, you were sensei. And he's like, you're right, kid. And he's like, you better get in that cement truck and do the cement. So while Miyagi Karate is practicing balance, and while Sam and Robbie are practicing balance on a wooden board, Cobra Kai is badassing their way through a cement truck. I know I'm trying to act as cool. But we also meet a new character called Raymond, who's basically, he joins Cobra Kai even though he's like an adult man, and Johnny and Robbie and Johnny runs into Robbie and Daniel there. And he's like, I know you're mad at me. And he's like, I am mad at you because of what told Miguel told Miguel to do a dirty move against me. I didn't tell Miguel to do nothing. And he's like, I know you're trying to be like cool or whatever. I know we're trying to be like cool or whatever, but it's gonna take me some time. And he's like, taking some time to hang out with that guy. He's like, hey, Mr. Lusso is a better guy than you will ever be, Johnny. So yeah, and he's like, hey, all he cares about is his rivalry than me. So let's get out of here. Johnny, I kind of get it what Robbie's saying because Robbie was like saying, I know you want us to be cool or whatever, but Johnny had to mention Daniel, so kind of true what he was saying about how Johnny only cares about Daniel rather than Robbie. So yeah. So then episode 3, we see Valley Fest, which, yeah. So Johnny's like, hey, my students told me to get an apple. You sold me a lemon. I love Johnny and his total ability to internet, but that kind of looks like a lemon. So he's like, what is it? Wait, I forget what the guy. I think he said it's called something. I'll have to remember. Oh, it's called Dell. He said it's called Dell, and Johnny basically keeps calling him, saying about how he doesn't know how the internet works. And when he finally figures out, he sees an ad for Miyagi-Do Karate. And he basically calls out Cobra Kai, telling them, don't be a snake in the grass, join Miyagi-Do Karate. And Johnny shows this crease, and he's like, free money, free karate? How am I supposed to compete with that? And yeah, so yes. So yeah. So and then Daniel and he's just like, hey, say Dad made a video where this is Cobra Kai. So yeah, so basically they take Daniel to a restaurant. Johnny takes Miguel to a restaurant where he said, oh yeah, I failed my son. I was too busy. Johnny's mom just died when his son was born, so he had so instead of being there with his son, he was instead of being there with his son on his first day, he failed him on his first day in the world by getting drunk and never paying the rent or doing anything. So yeah, so he's like, I failed my son, but I don't want to fail you, kid. So Miguel gets a text from Aisha about how Miyagi-Do is doing something at Valley Fest. So they decided to go, and he's like, and they had a stage. And I like how Raymond's like, hey, that's a bow staff. It's like what Donatello uses. It's his favorite Ninja Turtle. Raymond, you're so funny. But then in episode 4, we get introduced. Actually, Raymond eventually ends up joining Cobra Kai, but he's like, hey, who wants to take on the champ? And a girl, how did this girl get into his dojo? Who knows? They don't explain it. But who shows up? But Tori, played by Peyton List. And for a big fan of Peyton List and who's grown up on her shows like Jessie and Bunk, this was when I first saw Cobra Kai on Netflix and seeing Peyton List on the show, it was really cool see how she'd grown up from Emma Ross to Tori Nichols. It was really cool. So Tori just takes down Miguel in one fell swoop and said she's Tori with a Y, which obviously got people speculating that this was Allie's daughter, which we obviously learned was false. But we never learned why she does the same thing Allie did. We never learned why she uses the Tori with a Y joke as Allie did with Allie with I. I don't know why I guess they wanted theories, but the theory turned out to be not true. They never explain why she does this. So yeah. So Aisha befriends Tori, and Tori's like, how'd you get that? Tori basically had a hard life, and she's like, why do you need to join Cobra Kai? And she's like, how'd you get? She's like, a creep man was following her, and she showed him a thing he'll never forget. So she's like, hey, Sam's at a country club, and she doesn't want to go alone. So she and Sam aren't kind of friends. We all know because of the whole City Valley Fest thing. So yeah, so kinda yeah. So that happens, and they go together. And she's like, hey, she's like, you like Robbie, Sam? And she's like, yeah, but that can never happen. So she's like, your dad did go call a snake in the, and she's like, you kind of did upstage. And she's like, what are we doing? It's summer. When the show takes place in summer, and she's like, "What are they doing? It's summer. They shouldn't be talking about boys and not over a cry rivalry." But then Tori comes in with a bottle of vodka, and she's like, what did you do?" And she's like, "Yeah." She's like, "She should put that back." And she's like, "Sam, Tori, Sam." And she's like, "Oh, you're the Sam." And she's like, "Yeah, no one's gonna miss a vodka." And she's like, yeah, and she basically calls Sam a nun for some reason, which is kind of mean Tori's awful. And so when Amanda's wallet goes missing, we learn that Robbie's former friends, Trey and Cruz, stole it, but Sam thinks it's Tori because Tori stole the vodka, so it makes sense why she would steal a wallet. But Tori tries to say, she didn't do it, but Sam is not listening. Even Aisha says, why would she do that? And she tries to grab her, but she's like, get off her, and knocks her into the fruit, as Johnny did Daniel back in Karate Kid. Basically, same thing. And she's like, nice friend you got. And she's like, you never should have accused her of doing that. So yeah, that's what. So in episode 6, I think. Right. So in episode 6, what happens is that Kreese basically undermines Johnny's whole accomplishments and basically turns Cobra Kai into a dark version of itself by teaching Miguel and Johnny's students his version of Cobra Kai while Johnny's out dealing with Tommy and his friends from the original Karate Kid. And before dying, Tommy reveals to Johnny that he had a crush on Allie. But when Johnny comes back, they had a funeral for Tommy off screen, which is kind of like, wow, you kill off a big character in the Karate Kid trilogy, even though he appeared in like one movie, and then you just have a funeral for him off screen. Weird. So he's like, hey. What's the big mission? What's he's like, Coyote Creek, and Johnny's like, I don't think they're ready for that. But they go to Coyote Creek. Coyote Creek. Anyway, wait, no, I forgot. Wait, no. Episode 5 happened. Episode 5, what, I forgot about episode 5. Episode 5 is that Hawk discovers that Dimitri wrote a Yelp review wrote a Yelp review of him and decides to get revenge by confronting Dimitri with his new red hair. Yeah, new red hair and a total unrealistic mohawk. Hawk now has a new red hair and a new unrealistic mohawk, and he even changed his hawk tattooed hair from blue to red. Maybe it's indicating Hawk's dark side. So he basically is like, you better take these Yelp reviews down or we'll beat you up, son. And he's like, I'm going to be on but basically he's as Miguel was in episode 3 of season 1. Dimitri is not ready and basically gets pummeled, almost about to get pummeled, when Sam and Robbie flip in from out of nowhere. Where were they? How did they? We know that they were in this mall, but yeah. So they fight, and he's like, it's 2 against it's like 5 against 3. So they get into a fight. Robbie defeats Hawk. Then we get into that whole Johnny funeral day. Tommy dies episode, but now let's go to episode 7, titled Lull, and it's about Coyote Creek. It's also one of my biggest reviews on my channel. So yeah. So anyway, so Johnny sees what Chris has been doing to Johnny and to Miguel and his students, and yes. So yeah. So Hawk reveals that he has Mary's Medal of Honor, and then Miguel's like, he's like, hey, oh, you're still sad about Sam? And he's like, no, it's not about Sam, since it's kind of dating Tori at this point, and he's like, hey, you want the medal? You want the medal so bad? Come take it. And basically gets into a fight with Hawk, and Kreese is like, finish him, and Johnny, obviously shocked about what Miguel did by kicking Hawk in the face, he's like, what were you doing? That's not what I taught you. And he's like, that's what Senator Kreese taught us. And he's like, is that what life you really want to live? So he's like, hey, this partnership isn't working, Kreese. Get out. So episode 8 is now that Sam and Rob, and also so Robbie gives Miguel back the Medal of Honor. Miguel gives Robbie back the Medal of Honor, and Robbie hides it in the bushes where someone would find it, and yeah. So Sam just believes this, saying, "Oh, they were looking for it everywhere." So Robbie and Sam so Daniel decides, so Amanda doesn't like Daniel anymore because he's choosing his marriage over her, so she decides to move out of their house, and Daniel's grandma moves in, and she now that Sam and Robbie are officially together, and all that, so anyway, Tori's rubbing Miguel's feet when she's talking about how they're going to a 80s themed at her work, and Miguel decides to wear Johnny's old Cobra Kai jacket, and decides to wear Johnny's old Cobra Kai jacket. And while that's happening, Miguel tries to introduce Johnny to the world of internet dating, and he eventually goes on a date with other girl, which don't turn out. He even meets the woman that he got fired because of in the first episode of season 1. And she's just done with all these crappy apps. So like, you know, so yeah, so Johnny goes on a date with Daniel, Miguel goes on a date with Tori, and Sam and Robbie are there, and yeah, so he's like, yeah, so she's like, hey, where did you meet Tori? And Tori's like, and then Miguel's like, hey, she's in Cobra Kai, and she's like, oh, figures, and he's like, hey, why are you trying to judge Tori when you don't even know her? And she's like, I know enough. So, based on a misunderstanding. The rivalry started on a misunderstanding, but Tori basically trips Sam, saying, sorry, princess, and then Sam trips Tori, but then Sam gets in trouble for it because Miguel yells at Sam for tripping Tori, but he didn't see Tori trip Sam? Miguel, where were you at during that time? You see your girlfriend being tripped by Sam, but you don't see your girlfriend tripping your ex. How does that make any sense? So they get banned for basically doing nothing and only being abused by Tori, and Tori does an evil smile because they have to prove how she's being seduced by Chris. So yeah, so in episode 9, it's a whole another Daniel and Johnny become friends but ruined by something else episode because they love doing that in their finales where in the penultimate episode where Johnny and Daniel become friends. But then their friendship is ruined by something that happens in the finale type story. They really gotta stop doing this because it's just so annoying by the second season that Johnny and Daniel try to become friends, but then it's ruined by another plot line that happens in the finale type business. Where in this time, Daniel, as I like to call them, Johnny and Daniel, so last episode, Johnny had a date with a girl that really liked him, but he decided to. But when Carmen's boyfriend decided, when Miguel's mom, Carmen's boyfriend, was talking bad about her, saying about her, he would sleep with her 3 times and dump her. Johnny decided, yeah, he'd rather date Carmen, and this Carmen Johnny's first date, and it's obviously with the 2 LaRussos, Amanda and Daniel, with Amanda being the funniest character in this entire show, where she's like, and guess what? This waitress here is one of the worst characters and one of the worst employers ever because she gets because I'm like, for a job, don't you have to write things down for what people want? But he's like, hey, don't you have to write that down first? And she's like, nah, and she gets the order wrong, and Daniel's like, she had to write that down first. Like, yeah. So they start talking about how Chris showed up at Daniel, saying about how war was coming and how he took 2 soldiers out of their ranks, and about how, yeah, and he took Chris left because of Johnny, and the whole Chris left, and a bunch of people left, and yeah. So yeah, so he's like, how could you bring that guy back to life? And he's like, he's gone. But not really. So, yeah. So then, at a party that where Moon decides to invite both Cobra Kai and Miyagi-Do, Sam's like, hey, why'd you invite Cobra Kai? Even inviting her ex-boyfriend, which is really weird that she would invite her ex-boyfriend Hawk to a party. Because she really wants, with the new school coming up, she wants both of them to be friends. But obviously this is a show about rivalry, so you can't get what you want in this show, Moon. If you want a show about friendship, go into My Little Pony. Because that's a show about a bunch of friendships. But in Cobra Kai, you're never going to get that because there's so much rivalry. So Hawk decides to be a jerk by dumping drinks on Dimitri's head, and Dimitri decides to reveal about how Eli used to be a bedwetter, and yeah, and Mitch is like, remember what Sensei said about Mercy? And he's like, crap, Mercy, I'm gonna kill Dimitri for what he said. and yeah, so but then the cops come. Sam gets too drunk because of her total rivalry with Tori, and because her total rivalry with Tori, and that's why, and Aisha reveals, hey, your Robbie Miguel took gave Robbie the mail of honor. She's like, no, he didn't. Dimitri found the bushes, and she was like, no, delivered to his house. So Miguel and Sam reveals about how she knows, and they kiss Tori scene. And obviously, since Tori's a psychopath, so yeah, so at the end of the episode, Sam's like, no, don't take her to her dad's house, so don't take her home, so they decide to take her to Johnny's apartment. And Johnny is, glad to have them there. But who's not happy to see who's not happy? Daniel, because they have to have the whole class, oh, their friendship happened, but then it's ruined by something thing. Like first it was Robbie revealing that it's Daniel, that he's Johnny's son, and now it's Daniel's daughter being in Johnny's house. So they have a fight reminiscent of the Karate Kid before Sam breaks up. And Sam's like, hey, Mr. Lusso, it was my fault. I took her here. And he's like, don't start. If you want to be like him, fine. This is another point where second time where Daniel loses his trust in Robbie. This is another thing that I'm really tired of by the second season, because it's just like, I hope in season 4 or 5 they'll finally stop doing this. Oh, Robbie tries to befriend Daniel, but then it's ruined by Daniel losing his trust in him thing. And so yeah, so she's like, hey, blame her, don't blame Robbie. And he's like, hey, Robbie's got his own family to worry about. Just deal with ours. So we see Robbie in the Cobra Kai Challenger, which is still a really cool name, by the way. I forgot to mention that. And yeah, so Tori hijacks the morning announcement saying, Sam, I know where you are. I'm coming for you. So she's like, I know what you did. You kissed Miguel. And she's like, and yeah, this whole thing about Robbie and Sam not having no more lies between them is a total sham, because if Sam could have told, they were like, hey, no more secrets, and she was like, yeah, but not really, because she, at that scene where he told him about the Mel, she could have said, hey, she kissed Miguel, but no, Robbie's just shocked here, like, OMG, like, and then Tori decides to go all psychopath mode and try to kill Sam, because Tori's a psychopath, and Robbie tries to defend Sam by saying, hey, stop. Miguel's like, hey, and goes after Tori, and goes after Robbie. They get into a fight. The whole school gets into a fight. Hawk gets into a fight with a bunch of kids. Nathaniel and Bert get into their rivalry. Dimitri tries to get the principal, the teacher, only for him to be like, I'm out here. And yeah, this is so crazy. Yeah, it's crazy finale, and yeah, it's just so crazy. And yeah, so then well, is that Stingray tries to fight a bunch of kids, which obviously, since he's trying to become the new security guard on his first day, he'd be fired for doing this, because Sam's like, Tori, stop, and Tori kicks Miguel to the side, making him bleed, and then there's another Tori versus Sam fight, and she's like, is this really way you know how to fight dirty? And she's like, this is a tournament, there are no rules, and spikes Sam. So yes, so they go into a fight. Miguel tries to say she's like, this is for taking advantage of Sam, and he's like, why did it happen? And because Robbie, 1, she was drunk, 2, she was drunk, and 3, she was super drunk, and you knew that. Why are you saying this if you already knew she was drunk? And then he's like, hey, Miguel's like, you don't love her, she loves me, and And that just gets Robbie even more mad, and he's about to pin Robbie, break his arm, but then he realizes about Miguel, but Johnny's saying about he doesn't want to realize Miguel, but then he lets him go, and then Robbie kicks him off the ledge. Boom! No, Miguel! And he breaks his back, or whatever, and Sam's like, Robbie, what'd you do? And Robbie just runs away. Like, he could have. So yeah, so Carmen gives her trust up in Johnny as they were getting together, and Sam basically blames herself. Them saying they want to get Tori expelled. And of course they would, because their daughter's in a hospital because of Tori being a psychopath, and because she is, like, she could just talk to Miguel that night instead of doing all this and getting everyone in danger. She could just say, "Hey Miguel, I saw you kissing Sam," and he's like, "It's not what it means, Tori." Like, but no, she does this. She almost killed Miguel. She almost killed Sam if it wasn't for Robbie. Robbie may not be my favorite character for this season, but he's the fault for why Miguel's in the hospital. But Carmen basically blames Johnny, saying about, "Oh, before Miguel was in Cobra Kai, he was a sweet boy, and now because of you, he's in the hospital. I never want to see you again. Get out." And yeah, so sad news is that that last news from Miguel, that last voice message from Miguel. And it's obviously sad because Miguel was trying to call Sensei, but called Johnny about girl advice, but he never answered. So to see him in the hospital, so it means like, hey, because of your and Johnny's whole cry rivalry, their daughter's in a hospital. No more cry, Daniel. Give it up. It's over. So, I mean, that's the best character in the show. We can all agree that. And yeah, and also Moon has a girlfriend. I forgot to mention, she broke up with Hawk and got a girlfriend. So in only 4 days of breaking up with Hawk. So 4 episodes of breaking up with Hawk. Episode 6, 7, 8, 9. That's 4 episodes. This is episode 10, being 5 episodes, but prior episodes that was only 4 episodes. So how is she able to get a girlfriend in 4 episodes? I know there's like a week or a month time span, but still. But yeah, so Johnny, like, goes into his dojo to secret training his students, and he's like, "What's going on here?" And he's like, "I'm training my students." And he's like, "Your students? What are you going on?" And he's like, Hawk's like, "It's your fault why Miguel's in the hospital. He showed mercy on Robbie, so if he dies, it's on you." And he's like, "Miguel," and then Chris is like, "Oh, what are you up there? I had to talk with your landlord. He doesn't like you that much. And we had a new handshake deal. I don't Cobra Kai. You don't. Deal with it. And you can join Cobra Kai." And he's like, "I'm done with this. Cobra Kai should never happen. If you want it, it's yours. I'm out of here. Peace out, people." And yeah, I love my Johnny impression. So yeah, so Johnny's just drinking, throws his course banquet, I think it is, at his car, and ditches his phone to reveal a message, friend request from Allie Mills. Allie Mills, because it's not Schwarber in season 3, even though they still call it Schwarber. So this season is one of my favorites. I really enjoyed the season. Tori is a complete psychopath. I don't like her. She was good in the beginning, but when she and Sam started her rivalry, Tori just became evil. Okay, what she said about her mom, like, her mom had a job where, like it was her food that she was giving to her kids would have ended up trash, and she got fired for giving the leftovers out to them from her old job, and she got fired for that. Kind of sad, kind of makes Tori sad, but her whole wanting to get revenge on Sam because Sam killed Miguel, wanting to kill Sam because she kissed Miguel, not kissed. It's just not one of my favorites. I hope you enjoyed this season, and I'll see you next time for some Karate Kid reacts. Cobra Kai recaps. Bing, bing.